Commanders QB Carson Wentz suffered a fractured finger in his throwing hand during Thursday night's win in Chicago. Now, that's according to the NFL Network. Wentz will now head to Los Angeles to see a hand specialist to determine a timetable for his return. His status is now up in the air for next Sunday's game against the Packers. And Ryan, we've had a lot of breaking quarterback situations here on HQ this morning. So when it comes to Carson Wentz, the Commanders, obviously they're last in the NFC East, already struggling. How much more does this put them back?
Part of me, Jacqueline, feels like this is a galvanizing moment for this Washington team. We knew about the ESPN report that came out just before the Thursday night game. They were in Chicago. Ron Rivera was extremely fired up in his post-game comments about how he had a lot to do with bringing Carson Wentz to the team. And Carson Wentz subsequently said that he thought he appreciated Ron Rivera having his back, essentially. And here's the thing about Carson Wentz. He is a lightning rod for sure. When the Washington team traded for him in the offseason, there were questions about, is he an upgrade over Taylor Heinicke? I even asked those same questions. He struggled at the end of the season last year in Indianapolis. He obviously didn't leave Philadelphia on good terms 2 years ago. But the man is incredibly tough, and you cannot take that away from him. He fractured that finger in the middle of that football game on Thursday night against the Bears, stayed in there, made some key plays, and perhaps none bigger than that block he put on Roquan Smith down towards the goal line that got everyone, eyes aflutter on Twitter. And I think that's the takeaway for me, that Carson Wentz, you can say whatever you want to say about him as a quarterback, as a teammate, whatever. The man's tough, and he will put up with a lot. And I think the teammates and the coaching staff, they buy into that and they believe that. And perhaps this is a moment that brings this team a little closer together. They won that tough game in Chicago. Wasn't necessarily pretty, but they won it on that very last play. And Taylor Heinicke's a good player. I think he can come in if he needs to come in for a game or two, and he can keep things status quo, maybe perhaps make one or two more plays. And then, of course, if you really want to take a deep dive, you could go with Sam Howell, the day 3 pick, the quarterback out of UNC, who many thought, myself included, would be a top 50 guy. If you want to see what he looks like when you're sitting here 2-4, I'm not sure Ron Rivera is quite ready to give up on the season yet, just 6 weeks in, and turn to the rookie. But I think the team is in no worse shape now than they were a week ago with Taylor Heinicke. But again, the bigger takeaway for me is that Carson Wentz's toughness, that you can't doubt. You can say whatever else you want to say about his ability to throw the football down the field, and I thought he actually played pretty well in that Thursday night game, but he has proven time and time again that he can take a hit, he can lay out a hit, and when he gets hurt, he'll stay in there and fight with his teammates.
And, we saw hand injuries with Dak a little bit earlier, a thumb specifically there. So what is the timetable typically for this kind of injury, Ryan?
Well, this will be interesting because remember last year, Jacqueline, it was Russ Wilson who broke his finger, and he was out for some time. When he came back, he was never the same. He still doesn't look to be the same, and I don't know if that's still lingering issues with the finger injury or the change of venue, the change of coaching staff, the change of players around him. It's unclear, but I know that Brady Quinn's talking about this on the Pick Six podcast with Will Brinson. It takes a long time to get over those finger injuries, and that's not something that necessarily is going to be a 2 or 3 week thing, depending on the severity of it. Now, Dak Prescott's had the luxury of sitting behind Cooper Rush while he recuperates, and that's a sentence I thought I'd never say. But Cooper Rush has yet to turn the ball over, either interception or fumble, and I think that's what you need, along with a lot of great players around you, which Cooper Rush has on both sides of the ball. Washington doesn't have that luxury, and sometimes, like with the Seahawks last year with Russ, you push Russ back out there before he's ready, in part because he wants to be out there, in part because you need him. And maybe there's a similar type feeling in Washington if Carson Wentz isn't ready to go, say, in 2 weeks. He needs 3 or 4 or 5 weeks if Taylor Heinicke and or Sam Howell aren't getting things done. But this team is in a different situation, obviously, than the Seahawks were a year ago. They're not a good football team, if we're being honest with ourselves, and perhaps it's an opportunity to look at some of these other players, get Carson Wentz completely healthy, and then get him back out there when he's ready to go.
Awesome. That is our NFL expert, Ryan Wilson. Thank you so much, Ryan. If you're just joining us here on HQ, that breaking news, Commanders QB Carson Wentz suffering a fractured finger, and then also Tua Tagovailoa returning next week against the Steelers. The guys will have a lot to break down with all of this breaking news there at the quarterback position for the Dolphins and the Commanders. Make sure you check out the Pick Six podcast. You can scan the QR code, download, and listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.